Do you think of yourself as constructive? Well, can you create? Okay, let's talk about all the women out there. You're all capable of procreation. Not everybody, not every woman does it, but a lot of them do. So yeah, you're all possibly capable of creating and knowing the real meaning. Now, some of it hurts, I know, but it is, I imagine, the most satisfying feeling on earth. Now, guys, what do you do that's creative? Think about this. Now, if you say, oh, well, I don't have to do anything that's creative. Well, okay, let's say you farm. Do you ever go out and plant seeds and plow and fertilize and get things to come along so that you've got a crop? Isn't that part of creation? Creating? Didn't you have to be involved for it to actually happen? You created a crop. Let's say you're working in the city and you're trying to keep the water flowing to someone's house because that's your job. Have you ever thought what would happen after 3 days if the water stopped running? People only last 3 days without it, then we start to die. Very, very essential service. So you're not only keeping us alive, you're helping us to stay alive and to continue to be creative. Without you, without your water, we all die. There are so many ways that we can create, and there are so many times that we do, that it's just a wonder. And it's so odd to me when we have created something that we then want to destroy it sometimes. Yeah. Like, growing up, I was always surrounded by people who were building new things. It's just one of the features of my life. As an adult, though, I've seen so many people who want to do things like budget cutting, right-sizing, downsizing, blah, blah, blah. These people haven't got a creative thought in their head. My dad was a manager for a massive business. It carried freight by air, long before Purolator or UPS existed. And it was hugely successful because guys like my dad built it. It was a wonderful thing. And there was another fellow that came along in the mid-50s, 60s, who my father nicknamed the Body Cutter. He never flew an airplane or lifted a piece of mail in his life. And yet he was always on the phone once a month with my father and his peers, asking them how they could cut some staff. You know something? If you want to run a successful business and you keep cutting your staff, how long is that going to last? It's not. Anybody who works in any business will tell you they need support staff. They'd like it to be less, and whenever they can automate it, they do. But there are certain things that are just not possible. And in 1975, when my father took his last phone call from this jerk, when he retired, and he'd finally had enough. Well, I guess it was 87, sorry. I think he was glad to see the back of him because my dad's terminal was the only place in the entire country in Canada that didn't cut any bodies. And it had fabulous on-time performance, which meant that what was said, here's we're going to deliver from here to there, in this much time, always happened. Yeah. So, don't let people con you into telling you that cutting things is constructive. It's not. And don't believe the lie that it's money in your pocket. You see, the reason it exists in a government form is that when we tried to run it as a private thing, and almost everything was tried privately first, it failed. You don't think that public schools came around first, do you? Oh, God, no. Read some Charles Dickens. He writes a story of a kid who goes to a private school. It's awful. And that was how schools were. There were no public schools. think about medicine. And, you've seen pictures of these guys wearing these huge long masks during the time that was called the plague, the bubonic plague. And it killed people left, right, and center. Killed a third of all the people in Europe. But the point of it is that there were these guys who were doctors. And that system of private medicine stuck up until about 1965. Holy crap. And we did better when we got rid of it. We're still healthy. Maybe we could be healthier. And that's up to the doctors to push. Go ahead, boys. We did not have electricity when my dad was a kid. Yeah. He had a coal oil lamp. And one of his jobs was to clean the flue. Yuck. But during his lifetime, electricity was turned into household lighting. And prior to that, actually, it had been used, believe it or not, for transportation to replace horses, because that's where a lot of energy and money went into dragging things around the street, like streetcars. So that's where the first use of electricity really went in Canada. So, do you want to be constructive? I hope so, because I think most of us are. There's always that one jerky kid on the beach who comes and stomps on your sandcastle, and he's the kind of guy who turns out to be a conservative politician. So the next time your political person comes to the door, especially the conservative guy, just say these words. What are you planning to do that's constructive? Shut up. Don't ask any more and don't give him anything more to work with. And if he says, well, our plan is to cut the budget so we could put more money in your pocket. Really? If you're swallowing that, you're a massive sucker. Unless you've got enough money to pick up the phone and call a Learjet, pay $50,000 demurrage plus $4,000 an hour to get where you want to go, you aren't getting a tax break, buddy. You're like the rest of us. You're just throwing away some service so that somebody who's a lot wealthier than you can actually have a tax break. Don't fall for the lies anymore. Be constructive and throw out the people who aren't. I'm Pat Stewart. I've had it with destructive conservatives, and I never vote for them. And you shouldn't.